What if I were to tell you that the severe weather outbreak that was forecasted throughout the Ohio River Valley and then pushing into the East Coast was predicted as much as 180 days ago? Well, I want to show you a few examples using the LRC. This is the LISAC recurring cycle, and using it in a relatively new long-range forecasting technique, you can forecast months into the future with relatively the same accuracy as a 7 to 10 day forecast. I'm again show you a couple of examples of that. We'll give updates over the next week on how this kind of plays out. But yes, the weather system that just went through the eastern half of the states and the next system that will likely bring severe weather to areas of the central U.S. and possibly into the East Coast was predicted 45 days ago. It was predicted 90 days ago, and it was predicted to a point as much as 180 days ago using the LRC. What is the LRC? Well, it's the order in chaos. Yes, the river of air above us is cycling regularly to a point. There are some differences and there are influences that act on that. But as a whole, to make things very, very simple, what has happened already will continue to happen until a new cycle sets up for the following year. Not going to go into all the nitty-gritty details on that. If you've been following along with the LRC here on our stations, you're well aware. If you're not, I have lots of articles talking about the LRC, and we can do more talks about it. But what happened off on the East Coast? We had moderate risks for severe weather, and I'll see if I can pull these up really quick. Drag this over here. This is the East Coast for today for severe weather, slight and moderate risks. I'm going to pull this one up really quick. Be patient with me here. We'll pull this one up really quick, and this is going to be from the previous day. I'm going to go back to yesterday. I'm going to retrieve this outlook, and we had a moderate risk for severe weather through the Ohio River Valley area into central eastern basically the eastern half of the United States. Now, that has already happened to a point. This is what we are looking at. This is a forecast that was issued 45 days ago from Weather 2020. This is founded by Gary Lezak. He is the founder and creator, or what would you want to call it, founder of the LRC. This is what was forecasted. Make this a little bigger for you. Make sure that I'm not in the way of this. Make me nice and small. No, you don't need to see me here. These graphics are more important. This is the forecast through the 1st through 4th of April's day 1 and 2 for a 45-day outlook. And here is the second and third day outlook as it pushes into the East Coast. 45 days issued. So this is for April 1st through the 4th. What do we have here? Right on the 1st, we have a moderate risk in Oklahoma building into areas of east central and northeastern areas of Oklahoma, and then that shifts further to the northeast into the Ohio area and areas of eastern North Dakota, United States. That is fairly similar, and for a 45-day outlook, that is simply amazing. There are times where even a 3 to 4 day outlook will change this much. So for this little amount of change falling on these dates is a huge win and a great example for the LRC. Now, what is to come with the LRC? There are more graphics in here I wanted to show you. Let me see if I can pull these back up here. I wanted to just accidentally deleted it or closed out of it. So let me open it up here for a moment. I'm going to show you a couple other examples here that aren't in this newsletter. And this newsletter is provided by Weather 2020. If you're looking for more information on this, how you can get these newsletters and get this information, send me a message and we can talk about how you can get set up with this. But here's that first graphic I just showed you. Here is another great example of what had happened in previous cycles. So this year's LRC is about a 45-day cycle, meaning every 45 days, what initially set up late in the fall, beginning of October of 2023, is going to keep cycling through every 45 days. In October, a new cycle sets up every single year. It is a unique amount of days lasting anywhere from 30 to 75 days, somewhere in there, usually averaging out around 45 to 50 days. This year's cycle is about a 46-day cycle. It oscillates a little bit. It averages around 45 to 46 days. So previous cycles, we are in the 4th, moving into the 5th cycle of this year's LRC. Well, here is what is expected to play out on the 3rd 0Z on April 3rd to 24th. This is for that severe weather outlook we just looked at, that moderate risk into the Ohio River Valley, which ended up producing some tornadoes and a lot of damaging wind. This already happened. Here it is in November 21st. This is the second cycle of the LRC. Here is our wind flow aloft at the 500 millibar level. We have this general flow dipping down out of the west coast, deep trough into Texas, and then building back up into the East Coast. Man, doesn't that look very familiar with what just happened? I know this is messy, but look at these solid black lines. So these are our isobars that we're keeping an eye with, this general flow of air aloft. This has already happened, and it's going to happen again 45 days from now. So what is 45 days from now is going to be mid-May. We're going to be looking at another possibility for severe weather in this area. So what had already happened, and I'm probably not going to be able to find it now unless I go here. Something similar to this, very likely to happen again mid-May. We'll keep an eye on that one as we head into mid-May. But what is to happen over the next handful of days? Well, here again is our 500 millibar layer that we're keeping an eye on with the general wind flow. This is moving over the next handful of days using our European computer model. This is expected to build a ridge over the central portion of the U.S. This is going to bring nice temperatures into the Red River Valley of North Dakota, areas of South Dakota, Minnesota, flushing into 50s, 60s, 70s in some areas. But this pattern right here, this very unique feature, shouldn't say it's a very unique, but it's a very stands out quite, I'm not thinking of the right word. This stands out to me a lot. Why? Because this has already happened. When the LRC cycle first set up, we had this very distinct feature coming through. What do we have? Let's count the troughs. One area down here where we dip way down, a second one, a third one building in off the west coast, a littler fourth, and a fifth one. Now I'm showing you this image because this has already happened. Here we are about 180 days ago. This same pattern is happening. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Big ridge building into Canada. Not quite as strong in this cycle. Again, there are subtle differences, but look at that. We have one area, 2, 3, 4, 5 upper level lows coming in. And what are the models suggesting as we head over those few days? We're going to be watching those 5 areas building across the northern hemisphere. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 with that ridge building up into Canada, a secondary ridge off the East Coast. Now, what happened in the past cycles with these storms? Well, there was some severe weather risks throughout the central portion of the United States. These are our marginals and slight risks. They're color coordinated. We'll take a look on another thing here that's about to happen. But we had about 3 to 4 days of risk of severe weather in here. So if you were to extrapolate that, what would be a 180-ish days after October 11th, that brings us to this week of what is about to happen. So what had already happened, and what happened after that is about to happen again. I'm hoping that this is making enough sense to you and I'm not being too confusing here. But we should see something similar to that happening. Here is our model saying that, well, we already had this happen in October. And it didn't quite happen like this in the second cycle, but to a degree in the third and fourth cycle has happened again. That's how we're able to forecast that severe weather outbreak. But we're going to get this to move across, and we're likely going to see more severe weather building into areas here. Here is the SPC outlooks over these next couple of days. Here is that week. We have a 15% risk of severe weather in Oklahoma, down into Texas. On day 6, another 15% risk for severe weather. Now we'll again see how this changes over the next couple of days. But that's pretty similar to what happened already back in October. And to a point, if we go back to not 180 days ago, 4 cycles, but 135 days ago, 3 cycles ago. Let's go back to November. Doesn't that look kind of familiar? And it just so coincidentally happens to be on that 45-day cycle if you extrapolate it out 3 more times. That brings us this risk down here in Louisiana, and then building into the East Coast, and then off to shore. sure looks a lot like this, just lifting a little further to the north with a strengthened jet stream. So this is something very, very interesting that we'll keep an eye on. There are a lot more examples. I'm getting a little long on this video, so I want to keep it short, but these are just a couple of examples of some really interesting things using the LRC. So we already made a forecast here together mid-May. What are we going to be watching for? Probably something similar to this, probably a couple of back-to-back days of enhanced, maybe moderate risk for severe weather. May is pretty active for severe weather as we head into the central U.S., but also additional outlooks. The 7th through the 13th, this lines up pretty close to what we were just keeping an eye on. Here's our best probability areas for severe weather, the 17th through the 13th. So this is that second week of April. For areas of the central U.S. and then building into the southeast and areas of the East Coast. After that, that last half of April is likely to get a bit on the active side as well. We'll have a couple of storm systems that are going to bring a likely chance for severe weather across areas of the central and eastern coast. Of course, this can get broken up a little bit more into fine detail, and it will, but this is just the current outlook as a whole for the back half of April. We'll watch for several storm systems to pass through here. So I hope you liked the video. If you got any questions or comments, drop them down below. I'll try and get to them as quick as I can, and we'll continue to provide a few more of these examples of the LRC and work, and especially what happens afterwards. There's a lot of examples, including a storm that came through the Red River Valley around Christmas time, came back in early February, I believe. I'm not quick on that quick math there, but produced another area of an ice storm in basically the same exact spot. And then it just came through about a week ago, and we're expecting another bigger storm to rip through the United States after that. And of course, the models indeed are also picking up on that possibility of a storm system. Again, we'll show you this here in another video. But again, just drop those comments down below, and I'll try and answer those as quick as I can.